Hi, I'm Avah Worthington, joined by Brian McLernon and Jay Clark, and this is That Philly Jawn, Episode 5. First, we have to talk about the Eagles. After what we've seen in the last month, what do you think the expectations are for this season's playoffs?
Brian and Ava, I'm just going to say absolutely zero. I have zero expectations with the way the Philadelphia Eagles are playing football right now. They are playing putrid football. I mean, losing to Drew Lock. Drew Lock tore them up with a 92-yard drive in the 2-minute drill. He looked like prime Tom Brady. Barely skidding by the Giants with Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor, where if Tyrod Taylor doesn't underthrow a couple of those balls, we're looking at the Giants potentially winning that game, and then losing to the Cardinals and Jonathan Gannon. And right now, I mean, the defense just can't stop anybody. In the last 3 weeks, they've allowed 80 points, 26.7 points a week. You're not going to be able to win like that in the playoffs. So for those reasons, I have absolutely zero expectations for this Philadelphia Eagles football team.
Yeah, Jake, I'm going to agree. I mean, that Giants game, it came down pretty much to the final play, and it was that interception that pretty much sealed the deal for the Birds and to get that win. And then right now, you're looking at the 5 seed right now, and most likely you're going to go in and play Tampa Bay. Unless they somehow choke to the Carolina Panthers, then it would be either New Orleans or Atlanta. But I think the only way that they skid by the first round right now with how they're playing is if they play a team like Atlanta, who has, Desmond Ridder or Taylor Heineke as their starting quarterback. But I don't really see how they get by the first round at all. I mean, they would probably have to face the 49ers if they get to the divisional round, which they've already struggled against once this year. And with how they're playing, I don't see how they could find that success. I mean, who knows? As we've said on the show before, anything can happen in the playoffs. But as of right now, I don't think this team has proven to me that they can really make a true playoff run.
But something has to change, and that's the thing, is right now it doesn't look visually appealing, and that's the most concerning part, is we just keep saying we're going to be playing our best game of football. That hasn't happened yet all season long, and they're still 11-5, which is great. They have enough talent to overcome the issues that the coaching staff really provides. I mean, are we serious to say that we're happy with a 3rd and 20 screen pass, and the reasoning was the wind. We couldn't throw the ball deep because of the wind, or we thought that's what they wouldn't expect. I can predict what's going to happen when the Eagles call plays while I'm sitting on the couch. If I can predict it on the couch, they can definitely predict it on the sideline, and right now opposing defenses are seeing that.
And we saw Christian McCaffrey predicted on the Manning cast during Monday Night Football too. So, I mean, if an offensive player can predict that, who doesn't even really have to watch the film for the Eagles offense, then pretty much anyone can predict it, and that's a huge issue. And I agree, Jake, something definitely has to change.
Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown both under 100 yards receiving in the past 3 weeks. Something's got to change where we get those guys involved.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys feel better or worse after hearing what A.J. Brown had to say, breaking his silence in the past few weeks?
I mean, it was good to see A.J. Brown definitely step out about it, because after the game against Arizona, he declined to talk to the media, and people were wondering why. People were starting to give him his diva label, but I never really saw A.J. Brown as that type of receiver. And what he said during that little press conference, type thing in the locker room was 100% right. I mean, he addressed everything he needed to address. He took accountability, which other people that we'll talk about really haven't been able to do. But he pretty much said everything that needed to be said, and I guess it does give me a little bit more confidence, but it still doesn't really. I still need to see their stuff on the field first. Like, if we get a good game against the Giants, then I think that it'll start to encourage me a little bit more. But right now, it doesn't really do much for me yet.
Yeah, Brian. I mean, they were the textbook answers from A.J. Brown, right? It was all on us as players, not on the coaches. The coaches putting his neck out on the line for us, saying things that he messed up, but it was really us messing up. But to be honest with you, A.J. Brown getting labeled as the diva or the cancer in the locker room, and now he's really showing he's the glue that's holding this team together, and they need a leader right now when things aren't going their way and they're facing adversity. I think that A.J. Brown is trying to hold this team together, escape room night out for the team, trying to make team bonding. And right now they have a big group of veterans, but also some young guys that could learn a thing or two from A.J. Brown's leadership. But to answer the question, I feel a lot better about how the direction of this team could go into the playoffs. But again, they have to prove it on the field, and until they prove it on the field, I still have zero expectations for what the Eagles can do in the postseason.
I agree with what you're saying. I feel better watching the Eagles now, especially. Moving on to the Sixers, was Embiid's month of December the best month of any player in the league?
Well, a guy named Wilt Chamberlain still exists, so I think that for that reason, no. But I mean, Embiid was on an absolute tear over the month of December. I believe he was averaging over 40 points throughout the month, which is nuts. And the fact that Giannis Antetokounmpo won Player of the Month still baffles me, because Embiid had a much better month with multiple 50-point games in the month of December. And I think since Harden's run in his MVP caliber season, where Harden won the MVP and I think averaged about 45 a game in one of the months when he won MVP, I think it's the best month since James Harden did it. But to answer the question, no, it's not the best ever. Wilt Chamberlain still exists. Embiid's chasing Wilt Chamberlain. Everyone's always chasing a record held by Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, I mean, it's historic for not only the NBA but for the Sixers and for Joel Embiid. It definitely can add to his legacy here in Philadelphia, and I think that'll definitely help if he can eventually put a ring on that finger. But we'll just see. I mean, Embiid, absolutely incredible. I mean, it's undeniable how talented he truly is. And we were talking about on the show how he wasn't a winner and how he just could not get this team to where we truly desire them to be. But for right now, he looks to be on that pace. I mean, the Sixers overall are playing very well, so hopefully that month can continue into January.
Yeah, I personally owe Joel Embiid an apology, because I've sat up here and ripped him show after show, and I think that right now there seems to be a change in his attitude where it's more about the team and it's more about having fun. And I think that it's the first time in a while where this team really hasn't had a distraction. Jimmy Butler posed a major distraction. Ben Simmons posed a major distraction. Last year, James Harden posed a major distraction, being disgruntled with the front office and everything of that nature. So I think that this is the first time in a while where this team can just go out and play basketball. And I think that Nick Nurse, with what he's doing at the head coach spot and being a chess master and putting the right pieces together for this team to succeed, I think he's doing a great job. I think that Maxi's smile and fun energy is just contagious. And right now I think it's really showing that it's infectious throughout the locker room, and everybody seems to be having a good time and focused on the main thing, which is going out and winning basketball games and trying to win a championship. And right now I'm starting to see a bit of a change of attitude with Joel Embiid. So I owe him a personal apology. He is not a loser. In fact, he's starting to turn it around, and he almost looks like he wants to be a winner. So congratulations to Joel Embiid, who's my personal player of the month, even though that doesn't hold much weight.
So speaking of Nick Nurse, how does his, what we'll call a tall lineup, make them the top team in the East?
I don't think it has anything to do with the tall lineup per se. I think it has to do with how good that lineup is. When you look at when Oubre is out there, a good two-way player, Tobias Harris is a three-level scorer, Nicholas Batum can be a three-level scorer at different times, and obviously the two-man of Maxey and Embiid is one of the best, if not the best, in the entire NBA. So I think that when we look at all that, and then you still have Melton and Patrick Beverley and Paul Reed on the bench, I think that this Sixers team is deep, and I think that they could be very, very good when they're rolling out that starting five if everybody continues to stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree, Jake. I mean, it's really just all about how Nick Nurse has built this team. I mean, the depth that you said, them being very deep, both in their two-way guys with like Kenny Lofton. He was coming up to play with the Sixers, the stuff with their blue coats, and now the Sixers too. So I think overall with Nick Nurse building this lineup up, no matter how it is, I still have confidence, no matter if it's their tall lineup per se or if they decide to throw out any of their guys that are on the bench. I mean, I have full confidence in the way Nick Nurse builds this team.
Well, I believe that with that lineup, when Oubre and Embiid start, I saw a stat, I'm not sure if it changed over a while, but I saw it a couple days ago, that lineup is 8-0 together. And I think that Kelly Oubre has been such an impact player, and you saw his presence miss when he was out for about a month with that motor vehicle accident. So I think that him being in this lineup, not only is he a good player on the offensive end where he doesn't really need the ball in his hands to create off the dribble, he can create off a catch and shoot. And on the defensive end, he attacks the glass, gets rebounds, gets a lot of steals, creates transition points. So I think that on both sides of the ball, Kelly Oubre is a major upgrade that this Sixers lineup desperately needed.
I agree. Kelly Oubre, him being back on the court, everything seems to be flowing so much better. Who do you guys think the Sixers should snag at the deadline?
I'm going to say Alex Caruso, and this is why. Well, it would definitely help them in terms of cap space because we've seen, they would save, I believe, I think they would still have about $13 million in terms of room to sign another player. And he's only, I think, getting paid about $9 million per year throughout the next few years. So I think that would definitely help them out there. I mean, he's a solid two-way player. He's played pretty good offense overall throughout the past 4 years or so. He's okay defensively, and I just think he'd be a great tandem to add to that Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey duo.
Yeah, I think for the Sixers, they could use another outside threat in Bogdan Bogdanovic from the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta right now looks to be in a selling market, and almost anybody is up for grabs besides Trae Young. They're even thinking about sending DeJounte Murray, who would be a much heftier asking price. But I think that right now what the Sixers have, they don't need another real dynamic playmaker or guard. I think that a star player in a sense. I think that Bogdan Bogdanovic knows his role. He's a three-point specialist. He comes off the bench. He shoots the three at a high percentage. And we've seen that on Sixers teams before, whether it's Seth Curry or J.J. Redick. We've seen those guys that are just been, in recent history, just three-point specialists. And I think that this Sixers team, it can't hurt to have somebody that's out there that's trying to get you a couple baskets a night from beyond the arc.
Moving on to the Flyers, does the lack of success on their recent West Coast road trip affect the team, and how?
I mean, I think this is really the first time this Flyers team has faced true adversity this season. I mean, we saw their special start to the year, and then now they're kind of feeling a bit of a stoppage to that. I mean, they've just recently come home. They've dropped their first, 1 or 2 games at home. Mm-hmm. They didn't do too well on the West Coast road trip, and that's fine. Every team's going to have those types of road blockages throughout the year, but it's really just about how you respond. It's you're coming back home after being on a tough road trip. They hadn't been home since December 21st or something like that with the break and all that. So that was definitely a factor in that. But I mean, coming back home, it's just all about starting a win streak and just keeping that going. And I mean, they have a lot of young guys, and it might get to their heads that they're on this little stretch where they're not doing so well. But they just got to get back into it. They just got to keep winning.
Well, Brian, there's highs and lows to every team in every season, and I think that this is the first time, because the Flyers got out to a super red-hot start, that they're now starting to feel the weight of their expectations and that they feel as though they should be in the playoffs because of the way they're playing, and right now that's sort of affecting them mentally, and I think that's tough for a young team because at the beginning of the year, there's no expectations, it's just let loose and have fun, and now they're starting to realize that there's a weight and there's a fan base that's expecting something. And I think that also going out on the West Coast is tough. You're in a different time zone. You're not at home. Again, December 21st is a long time, a good couple week stretch. And I think that right now, this is a major opportunity for the Flyers to show everybody what they're really made of. And it has to start with them being back at home at the Wells Fargo Center.
For sure. We talk about the younger guys on the team, especially Cam York in the defensive position. He's played all 37 games. He has 5 goals and 8 assists. What do you guys think of that?
I mean, he's been very solid. I mean, a lot of these guys have been doing great. I mean, Travis Konechny, who was just recently named an All-Star. Yes. I mean, Owen Tippett, Sean Couturier. I mean, it's just the way that this lineup is built, and the way that this lineup is built has definitely given us confidence. I mean, that showed because of how well they started, and right now that they're on a little bit of a road skid now, or they're on a bit of a block. I keep saying blockage because it's the only thing that comes to mind, but. I mean, it's the first time where they're starting to feel a little bit of adversity, and it's really just, again, all about how you respond, get these talented players to get back on their streaks, and hopefully that this Linsanity run that they went on is not a fluke. Hopefully they can continue winning into January. Yeah,
not to mention York also plays really well with Travis Sanheim in the defensive end.
Definitely.
They've been a very good tandem back there for the Flyers, and that's one thing that coming into the season, you needed someone to step up defensively. Hopefully they can continue a bit of a high caliber play into the later parts of the season.
Speaking about stepping up defensively, Travis Sanheim has incredibly stepped up. He's played 36 of the 37. He has 4 goals already, 21 assists, way better from where he was at this point in the season last year. Do you think it has anything to do with being paired with Cam York?
I think it honestly comes with there being absolutely zero expectations. I think that York's a great player, Sanheim's a great player, and I think that this team is now developing chemistry, and I think they're all starting to trust one another as a unit, and I think that Coach Tortorella is really buying into that, and I think that with this team chemistry, with what they have going, with them being young and they're playing and they're having fun, I think that really just when you're having fun, you play better. It doesn't matter what level, what age, it doesn't matter. When you're having fun, you play better, and I think for those reasons, that's why Sanheim has really stepped it up from last year to this year. He's made a jump.
Yeah, it's really been just that camaraderie that they've had, and that was one of the reasons why they started winning. I mean, there's just the way that Tortorella built this lineup, the way the chemistry is built, that's what really has made this team such an underdog, and that's what Philadelphia sports really thrive on, the idea of being an underdog team. So hopefully they can continue that mindset. I mean, they're still looking good. I mean, they're still on pace to make the playoffs. So, I mean, overall, it's really just about how these guys click, and they seem to be clicking well. It's just the first time they've faced this adversity. It's going to happen. So, I mean,
we talk a lot about the young guys. Cam Atkinson, he came back from injuries, having a rough season, was benched last night. He said today in an interview he's hoping he can step back up. So, what do you guys think on that?
Yeah, I mean, coming back from an injury, doesn't matter the sport, is definitely tough. And I think that there's not only a physical limitation, there's a mental limitation there as well. And I think that sometimes you really have to mentally push yourself to try and go out and say that I can do this again. You know, I can get back to where I was, and don't let that injury really limit you. You have to trust your rehab. You have to trust that you're going to be back to 100%. And I think sometimes it's not only a physical limitation, sometimes it's a mental blockage in I don't know that I can be where I was again. And I think for Atkinson, he's really just got to believe in himself and not be afraid to be great out on the ice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's really just about how you build yourself up mentally and physically, obviously. And then it's just how the teammates respond. I mean, it's really just, it's like a huge next man up mentality when it comes to that. One guy goes down, you're just going to have to step yourselves up, play better. And I think that this team is very much so capable of that.
Agreed. So the Phillies, even though it's not their season, do we think they have a genuine chance to compete with the Dodgers after their recent signings?
I would say yes. I believe that baseball is the ultimate team sport, and I will die on that hill. And
right there with you.
I believe that right now, Yamamoto and Glasnow are obviously great. They obviously got Ohtani. We talked about him 2 weeks ago. Their lineup is very top-heavy. They have a great rotation. Their bullpen lacks a little bit, and I think that because their bullpen lacks a little bit, and you got to count on guys 1 through 9. If 7 through 9 are a guaranteed 3 outs, that's what, 9 outs a game? Because you're going to go up at least 3 times batting at the bottom of the order in a 9-inning game. So you have to produce from not only top of the lineup to the bottom of the lineup, and I think that the Phillies have really encapsulated that idea. They have a lot of star players, but they also have guys that understand their role. You have to understand that Johan Rojas, he might not be the best hitter. Brandon Marsh is not always the best hitter, but they're good defenders, and they can produce for you that way. And I think that right now the Dodgers kind of lack a very well-balanced team. They're kind of pushing all their chips in on a couple key guys, and you got to hope that, 1, those guys stay healthy, and 2, those guys perform when it matters most in the postseason.
Yeah, and that's just not something that they've really done as of recently. I mean, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, they've kind of struggled in the postseason. We saw what they did against the Diamondbacks. If Kershaw comes back, we saw what he did against the Diamondbacks too. I mean, he did not have a good start in the NLDS. So, I mean, we haven't seen much postseason success from their lineup. Ohtani hasn't even made the postseason yet, so we have no idea what he would do there. And besides guys like Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman, who else do you really have? I mean, you have Gavin Lux, Miguel Rojas, and aging Jason Hayward.
Max Muncy.
I mean, who is solid, but I wouldn't say is on the caliber of Freeman and Betts. So, I mean, besides those 3 stars offensively, you don't have that much to work with. But I think the Phillies have done a better job at really balancing their lineup, as you said.
And the Phillies still have a ton of time to go out and try and get somebody else, whether it's Blake Snell, who's the best remaining starting pitching free agent. You also could go out and trade for somebody, Shane Bieber, Dylan Cease, if you wanted another starting pitcher. Bellinger is still out on the market if you're looking to move an outfielder or add another depth outfielder and maybe say that it's not Rojas's time yet, move him back down to AAA, which I personally would not like, but I think that Cody Bellinger is a great player. So there's still time for the Phillies to make roster moves to try and catch up with what the Dodgers did in front-loading their lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also confident in the Phillies rotation that they have. I mean, they just re-signed Aaron Nola, which was huge for them.
Huge.
Yeah, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, they're two very good inning eaters. I think they both had the most starts where it was like 6 or more innings. Ranger Suarez, Taijuan Walker, both very solid 3 and 4 pieces. Then you got Christopher Sanchez at the bottom of the rotation, who was very encouraging to see last year. So overall, I like the rotation. And again, if you go out and get someone like Shane Bieber, Dylan Cease, do you want to add to that rotation, you can have Sanchez be your 6th starter or even shove him into the bullpen if you really want to. So, I mean, I think overall the Phillies are in a better spot. I mean, you might not see that on paper, but I'm more confident in the Phillies right now.
Yeah, they're definitely in the better spot on the field. With that, that wraps up the 5th episode of That Philly Jawn. Thank you for joining us.
And that's it.